Welcome to Keeping History on Two Wheels. Today we're at the Pinpoint Heritage Museum just outside of Savannah, Georgia, on the Moon River. Yes, that's right, the Moon River. Johnny Mercer. There you go. Anyway, the Heritage Museum is a history lesson all in of itself, depicting life down this 1 mile stretch of property that every piece of property is riverfront. Now, there's a couple of reasons why we're here. You've heard me talk about the Gullah Geechee people. Well, this place was full of them. But there's also one other person that you would not believe came from here. That would be Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Let's take a trip. Pinpoint, Georgia is an unincorporated community in Chatham County, just outside of Savannah. It's a rural settlement founded by freed people after the abolishment of slavery post-Civil War. It was settled in the 1890s by people from nearby Ossabaw, Green, and Skidaway Islands. In 1897, they founded Sweetfield of Eden Baptist Church. In 1926, as part of the school building initiative for African American children in the South, who at the time only had access to underfunded segregated schools, a Rosenwald school was built in the Pinpoint community. The town lies on the edge of Shipyard Creek, a branch of the Moon River. The surrounding land has large oak trees and coastal marshes, as well as crab and oyster habitats. The main employer in the community was crab and oyster canning from the 1920s through the 1980s. Pinpoint remains a small, predominantly African American community that has a well-established Gullah community within. The Gullah people have been able to preserve many cultural connections to their origins in West Africa, where many of their ancestors were captured and then enslaved in the United States. Gullah, the only English-based Afro-Indigenous Creole language in the United States, is spoken in Pinpoint. It is unknown how many native speakers there are in the town, but along the southeastern seaboard, there are about 5,000 semi-speakers and 300 native speakers. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas is a native speaker of Gullah, then called Geechee. He attributes his silence on the Supreme Court to his self-consciousness speaking in an all-white school as a teenager, where classmates made fun of him for not speaking standard English. Pinpoint Heritage Museum, once the Varn and Sons oyster and crab canning factory, is devoted to the Gullah Geechee cultural community. Justice Thomas was born in 1948 in Pinpoint, Georgia, the small, predominantly black community near Savannah founded by the freedmen after the Civil War. He was the second of three children born to M.C. Thomas, a farm worker, and Leola Pigeon Williams, a domestic worker. They were the descendants of slaves, and the family spoke Gullah as a first language. Thomas's earliest known ancestors were slaves named Sandy and Peggy, who were born in the late 18th century and owned by wealthy planter Josiah Wilson of Liberty County, Georgia. Thomas's father left the family when Thomas was only 2 years old. Though Thomas's mother worked hard, she was sometimes paid only pennies per day and struggled to earn enough money to feed the family. And she was sometimes forced to rely on charity. After a house fire left them homeless, Thomas and his younger brother, Myers, were taken to live in Savannah with his maternal grandparents, Myers and Christine Anderson. Justice Thomas then experienced amenities such as indoor plumbing and regular meals for the first time. Myers Anderson had little formal education but built a thriving fuel oil business that also sold ice. Justice Thomas called Anderson the greatest man he's ever known. When Justice Thomas was 10, Anderson started taking the family to help at a farm every day from sunrise to sunset. Anderson believed in hard work and self-reliance, and he counseled the children to, quote-unquote, never let the sun catch you in bed. He also impressed upon his grandsons the importance for a good education. In 1991, President Bush nominated Thomas to the Supreme Court of the United States, and after a controversial and contentious confirmation process, Thomas was confirmed by the U.S. Senate and became the 106th Justice and the second Black American to ever serve on the nation's highest court.